It's a panel on global investments in India. What makes it exciting? We have Andrea Young from Makers Fund, Phylicia Co from Play Ventures, Yash Komori from GFR Fund, and Deepen Parikh from Courtside Ventures, Tomoharu Urabe from MIXI Global Investments. And the panel will be moderated by Pearl Agarwal, Eximius Ventures.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining in. I know this is after lunch, but a very interesting panel. We have all global investors that have been looking at India or actively investing in India and are also thinking of increasing their exposure to India over the next few years. So without further ado, I'll go around the table and ask everybody to quickly introduce themselves, their thesis, and also, if I can spice it up a little bit and ask them what was the biggest mistake they made when they moved to India. We'll start with Haru.
Hello, everyone. I'm Haru from MIXI Global Investment. Well, MIXI is a listed company in Japan. We started 25 years ago. Then we started corporate venture capital last year, focused in India. So I'm in charge of the corporate venture capital. I belong to the company. When we started, I decided to spend as much time in India. So we have a small office space at WeWork in Bangalore. So I spend about half of my time here in India, coming back and forth. So I think I spend quite a lot of time here in India.
Deepen.
Hi, everyone. My name is Deepen Parikh. I'm a partner at Courtside Ventures. We're an early stage fund focused on the verticals of gaming and sports. We launched our first fund in 2016 and currently investing out of our latest fund, which is primarily seed stage centric. We invest globally. US is about 65% of our focus, and the remainder is between India, Middle East, and other parts of Asia. I've recently relocated to Dubai. We now have 6 investments in India, are planning on spending much more time in the region.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. So I'm Yasushi, so you can call me Yasu from GFR Fund. GFR Fund started in 2016, so we are running the 100 million fund focused on the entertainment consumer startups. So we do game, of course, 40%, 50% game portfolio relevant to the game, but the rest of the 50, 60, we also do the non-gaming, ranging from the e-commerce, social media, digital media, fintech, e-commerce, blah blah blah. So we do consumer agnostic. And in terms of the India investment, so we are trying to deploy the around 10%, 50% fund to the India or the other emerging country. We already have the 3 India portfolio companies, so we are still actively looking for the India game startups too. And more importantly, my previous job was also a game developer. I was running the game 6-7 years as a head of the game title. So actually, my previous career is also, kind of the game developer.
Hi, everybody. I'm Phylicia from Play Ventures. Play Ventures is an early-stage gaming-focused VC fund. We typically invest pre-seed, seed stages is our preference. We'll also do Series A, investing in Web 2, Web 3 gaming. We're very gaming-focused. We also do gaming-adjacent investments, including in consumer. I think we've been investing as a fund in India since 2020, 2021, and have about 4 or 5 portfolio companies in the market so far. First time in India, so very excited to be here, and I'll let Andrea introduce herself.
Oh, hey everybody. My name is Andrea from Makers Fund. Makers is also, early stage gaming venture capital fund. We started back in 2017. So we invest globally. I think to date we have probably over 120 gaming investments made across the world. We are typically probably late seed to Series A, Series B stage fund. So typical check size about 5 to 10 million, and also be able to flexible, go a little bit higher or lower. We've started investing in India since, I think, 2019. Also have already made a couple of investments in the country, including Winzo and also Stellar Play Games. So I'm normally based in Singapore with Phylicia, also covering Asia gaming studios. Also my first time in India, so very excited to meet everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Before this, we were just talking a little bit about India. I myself moved to India in 2020 and realized that India is a very different market than the rest of the world. When we were investing out of New York, it was much easier to understand any other European market or Latin market than the Indian market. In fact, if I may say so, we are more than 20 countries combined in one, and each market behaves differently. So all of these investors have taken a very bold step of coming in, but I'm pretty sure that the initial days wasn't as easy as it is today after spending 2 to 3 years here. So maybe we'll start with Haru. What was your biggest learning of the Indian markets when you initially started? And how have you altered your approach since then?
Yes, coming from Japan, first thing I realized is that business practice here in India is quite different from what we see in Japan. Japan is more punctual. We really care about the timeline and milestones. So, one very casual example, I came to India, I was confused that people keep saying to me 2 minutes, just 2 minutes. So I was counting the 2 minutes, but it's 5 minutes past, 10 minutes past, it's nothing done. So I was complaining, hey, 10 minutes have passed, but it's not happening. But eventually I realized that 2 minutes is just a moment, could be 10 minutes, 20 minutes. But in the business, in the investment side, when we talk with the founders or counterparts, that as a Japanese business person, I tend to ask, hey, when's the due date? When's the due date expected for the feedback? Then they say, earliest possible, or today, or tomorrow. It's always like on the spot. So the business practice here is more on the lean, on the spot, rather than assessing and following the timeline. So we had to adjust how we run things here. That's one of the learning that I got initially.
Deepen, you've been here a little longer, and of course, probably used to visit. What were the challenges that you saw?
So growing up, of Indian origin, used to come to India every year when I was younger, but really mainly went to Gujarat, where my family was from. And so when we launched Courtside in 2016, there was no intention. One of my founding partners of Courtside is also Indian. We never intended for Courtside to be that heavily focused on India. It's not that we didn't want to invest in India, it just wasn't an area that in 2016 we had spent enough time in from an investment standpoint. So fast forward, imagine this, our first investment in India was in cold email. So Pavan, who's the co-founder of Winzo, reached out to us in a cold email in May or June of 2020, so the thick of COVID. We ended up investing 3-4 months later. We never met him or Soumya. We did a lot of Zoom calls. We hired an accounting firm on the ground in India, hired a law firm in India, all while COVID was raging in India. And my lesson was, one, it's okay to be a little naive on the market. If we knew too much about the India market and the challenges that potentially were around RMG or were maybe going to come around RMG, we may not have jumped in right away. I think the belief that we knew the business model really well through companies like Skills in other parts of the world, especially the US, gave us a lot of conviction in backing really good founders in the India market in the early days. And so, I think RMG is now a force of an industry. Obviously, the companies have grown significantly, but I think had we known a lot up front, it probably would have been more detrimental and probably may have led us to not making the investment early on. So the biggest lesson and learnings for us, and certainly we've missed on a lot of companies over the last 4 or 5 years in India as well, the key is we are a seed stage fund. We are backing people, but there's no replacement of being on the ground in India. It is, to Pearl's point, it is multiple countries in one. If you are not here regularly, and you are not understanding the difference between Bangalore, Hyderabad, Delhi, Mumbai, and then a lot of the smaller towns or cities as well, you're going to miss out on some of the biggest opportunities, like going into local markets here, translation or localizing content. Those are some of the biggest opportunities and how some of the biggest gaming companies have grown here. But you wouldn't really see that if you're not spending enough time here. So I think, Haru, of all of us, is dedicated to spending, more than half of the year here. That was part of the logic of why I moved to Dubai recently, to spend more time in India. So I think that's our biggest learning lesson.
Yeah. Yeah, so I know we have a company together, Stan, and you guys have very actively now started spending time in India. So would love your opinion as well.
Yeah, so actually, so like we invest in actually four portfolio companies are already invest in India, and one is already go out. But so our learning is so we invest in first company 2019 and the second company in 2023 last year. But the challenging and learnings is so I'm grown up in Tokyo, Japan, and now based in the United States for the last 10 years. So like my culture understanding background is the US and Japan, but India is a totally different country, even compared to the US and Japan. So culture-wise, also demographic-wise, is super different. So before I came in, actually last year was the first time I came in India, and since then I learned a lot, how people live or how people spend time, their life. And actually, I'm very shocked, like super busy traffic in India. So it never happened in Japan and the US. But anyway, so like learnings is, so I have to be here more often. Already, I came here 3 times. Then, so like I have to understand the Indian culture, India livings, India learnings. So yeah, she bring up the Stan. Stan is a, entertainment, gaming, communication platform. So it's a like in the US there's a Discord or Twitch, this kind of the equivalent app in the US and Japan. But the Stan is also slightly different angle. So yeah, so that's also based on India culture, India behavior too. So I also give you another couple cases. So I also recently look at several startups developing the cricket games. But for me, cricket, I have no idea actually what is a culture, demographic, who play in a physically, and even I don't know the rules. So, but if we invest in these type of the games, I have to learn more about the India culture, India behavior. That's have to run under my challenge. Yeah.
Absolutely, Phylicia.
Yeah, so I think I echo what Deepen and Yas says about kind of their learnings. I think for us, we invested first into India, starting in 2020, into MPL. That was obviously while COVID was happening, lockdown was happening, there's no travel going around. So I think, to be honest, we probably got a little bit spoiled about doing deals remotely. And I think you can read a lot of, and we do keep up to date, obviously you can read a lot of reports about 1.5 billion people in India, obviously massive market. And you can read all the high level data, but I think there are some things that we're still learning about, right? Like cultural differences. At the end of the day, we invest at the pre-seed seed stage. We work very closely with all our founders. We do monthly catch-ups with them, they can drop us WhatsApp calls anytime. We talk to them. And so for us, it was also figuring out how do we best work with our founders? Like what was it from their upbringing, their culture, what matters to them, versus what matters to us. It's going to be different for founders from different cultures. So how do we best support them in their journey? I think that's still something that we're learning and figuring out. And obviously there's different ecosystems, Hyderabad's very different from Delhi, very different from Bangalore. So what does that mean when it comes to ecosystems, talents, how people work? And how that translates into how the startups function. How do they make games? How do they make businesses? And how do they succeed? So I think the key thing that we learn, I guess, is that there's a lot of things to dive into to understand India as a startup ecosystem and then as a gamer market as well. And I think that what's really impressed us over the last few years is just how dynamic it is. So if you had some, I guess, assumptions or known facts about India that was true 18 months ago, you probably want to re-examine that and keep re-examining that because those assumptions might not be true anymore.
I think that try not to echo too much, but definitely very similar learnings is that.
Just a little closer.
Oh, sorry. I think first deal was in India was 2019 for us, and all the way until now, I think myself and one of my colleagues, for makers, is also like our first time actually visiting India. And it's definitely like what you talk to people over Zoom and what do you read on those like investor reports of like, India gaming market is growing at X percentage to reach what number of dollars, at certain years. You never know like the nuances of why and how. Like for example, if you talk to over Zoom, like an Indian studio that's making games specifically for the India market, for example, I think cricket is a great example. Or there are also other, idol games that has to do with local religion. You really have to be here and talk to the people who both make the games and also who are the players to understand like what is the motivation both from the investor to make that game and what is really the motivation both for retention and potential monetization for the players that are on the ground, right? I used to live in Australia, and I wouldn't say that I'm completely new to cricket games, but at least I know how that works and also have been around people who love cricket. But it's like a whole different level of passion, like when you come to India, right? Even though, same sport, but I think in Australia there's also other sports that people are more passionate about. But I feel like, how I observe and how passionate people and the love for that specific sport is really, you don't really understand, unless you come and meet with the people here, right? Versus just go on App Annie and see, cricket game's doing really well, but you probably wouldn't assume, too much other than that. So, always being in the ground, especially for a huge and more complex market like India, is really important.
No, I completely resonate with everything that the speaker said. India is a very complex market today. We have over 500 million gamers. If you were to segment it, each gamer group behaves differently, whether people who are playing casual games, AAA games. But what is even more starking, or rather surprising, is the fact that Indian game developers contribute only 6% of the overall revenue that is generated from India. So a lot of the games today that we are playing has been imported from outside, despite the fact that we have over 500 million gamers, over 200 million gamers that are paying, and one of the largest markets out there, one of the largest number of downloaded games. So there is definitely a huge scope to develop, to innovate in the country. And that's where supply of capital, supply of talent becomes extremely important. So how, sort of hearing from your side, you've spent some time here, you've done a few investments as well, and increasingly meeting new companies. What are the opportunities that you're seeing in India to be able to bridge this gap between supply as well as demand?
Okay. Well, since this is the IGDC gaming event, I'll talk about the gaming sector. Well, the general consensus about the Indian market is that, as Paul mentioned, that there's massive downloads and players. There are so many gamers here, but gamers don't pay as much. There's some people explain it in the way that Indian consumers the consumer mindset is different. They like more microtransaction rather than paying. I mean, yeah, I understand it. That the consumer mindset is different, but my opinion about the market opportunity here is that, naturally that when the economy grows, that the people first spend their money, disposable income, to the tangible assets and the tangible services rather than the digital entertainment. So people here are now showing a strong consumer consumption into the tangible assets and tangible services, but it's about the time that as the GDP per capita grows, that India, I totally believe that people in India will start to pay more into the gaming and entertainment for fun. I mean, it's normal. I mean, in Japan, everyone buys Nintendo Switch or anything, I mean, for the entertainment alone. So I'm just waiting for the, I mean, I really expect the Indian consumers will also start paying in the coming years on the gaming side. So then, if the consumers pay more, then there's more opportunity for the developers and India founders. So the ecosystem will naturally grow. That's my belief here.
Right. And coming to you as you sort of see the markets, any particular trends, genres that is attracting your attention that you see we have an edge over other areas?
Yeah, I think, look, in the complexity lies the opportunity here, right? So when you think about India as a whole, the narrative that everyone had 10 years ago was that India could not monetize, right? And so you look at even Facebook or Meta's numbers back in the day, there was always a breakout where you saw that the ARPU in India was significantly lower. What India has that very few other countries in the world has is an unbelievable talent pool, and second, scale. The amount of scale India has and presents in terms of an opportunity for any sector, especially gaming, is completely unprecedented. And so you're seeing this narrative shift over the last couple years. Monetization is still challenging. RMG was kind of step one, which was from a monetization standpoint. So if you were a developer who is focused on building games in India, certainly RMG made sense. Even if you're a developer outside of the India ecosystem that wanted to enter into the India market, RMG presented one of the most spectacular monetization opportunities. Today, you're seeing a bit more of an uptick in IAP. Although still early, you have platforms, at least stuff we're in, a company called Elo, which has really taken off. They've done a really spectacular job of monetizing outside of the traditional realm of advertising, right? So they've done a really good job of transactions. And so, we're constantly as investors thinking about how is India different? I mean, I can list off 100 ways that India is different from a lot of other markets in the world. But even in RMG and GST, there are very few countries in the world that could have withstood the GST tax that was kind of implemented. India is one of them because of the sheer volume. And so I think we all have to think about India no longer as a place where, it's just volume and unmonetizable, but it's volume where you have to get really creative in how you're going to monetize. And so we're starting to see a lot of developers who are thinking about different monetization. It's not a rinse and repeat model here in India. You cannot take exactly what's worked elsewhere and replicate it here. Cultural nuances are too different. The audience, age, everything is so different from other parts of the world. You have to build for India. And so that's really where we're trying to get smarter, which is where are we seeing differentiated business models that are specific to India? And how is that going to scale kind of towards the next generation of taking advantage of the 500 million plus gamers?
Hello. Yeah, I would like to add a comment for the, Haru and Deepen comments. Actually, I started my game development from 2007 in Japan. I'm running the game. So at that time, Japan is also, up or up down, is relatively smaller than as of today. And so education is very important actually. So consumer user are getting more educated as a developer, charging more money. So from 2007 to the 2015-16, so Japanese developer released tons of the function of course charging the IAP, also battle pass or gacha or whatever. But as player get more income, as player get more used to, they spend more. So I think the situation now in India is, I think, similar to the 10 or 15 years ago, what happened in the US and Japan. So 10, 15 years ago in the US and Japan, up or up down is low, but grew 5x, 10x in the last 10, 15 years. So we also have the portfolio company Stan and also Super Gaming too. Also Iroro. I know the Iroro. Unfortunately, I didn't in. But these three companies, up, down, up, is now growing. So I believe 5 years from now, so up, down, up, gonna be maybe 2x, 3x, yes. But the next 10 years, up, down, gonna be a 10x. I'm very looking for it actually.
Sort of moving to Phylicia. Phylicia, you guys look at global gaming companies. And what we are seeing in the last few years is the gaming companies that have become large or the games that are getting adopted globally are coming out of Southeast Asia. A lot of local themes from here becoming global. Are you seeing something similar that can happen in India? Any sort of examples or trends that you can share that you believe can be built for the world, not just India?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm not sure which time frame you're looking at recently, but I think in general, look, if you're developing games for a global audience, I think every game developer right now has their work cut out for them. User acquisition is expensive. Mobile free-to-play in general is a pretty crowded, mature market, so you need to really pick your genres carefully. And I'll give you an example. For example, if we look at fashion simulation, right? You had, a long time ago, you used to have, was it Covet Fashion and I think another one. And those were the incumbents doing, a few hundred million a year. Those incumbents now have declined. They've sunsetted or they have publicly announced they're sunsetted. So you can find those kind of areas where, hey, genre's ripe for the taking, and you know what? Like compared to when these games were made 10 years ago, I now have a suite of generative art AI tools that make the unit economics and the cost of content generation much better. So you can still identify those areas, but again, you'd still run into the same issues around user acquisition. When we think about India, I think we think about it in two broad buckets. One is you can make it in India for the rest of the world. Again, you face the same challenge as everybody else. I think the other one, where if you talk about unfair advantage, made in India for a really, really big market that is young, right? I think you have a significant population of folks who are 20s, 30s, even younger. That's not necessarily the case in Asian markets like European markets or North America. And those things present a lot of opportunities and tailwinds which exist in the Indian market but doesn't necessarily exist all over the globe. And I think that, I'm going to go out on a limb here, I don't think you can build a market leader that dominates India from somewhere else, right? So you just don't have the understanding of what consumers like here, what their habits are. Even something like payments, for example, you guys have UPI. Somebody else is going to look at this and they're not going to understand it the same way that you as somebody here or a developer here understands it. So you have an unfair advantage of understanding the consumer base and where the opportunities are. I don't necessarily know where those opportunities are. I leave it to the experts to tell us and educate us. But I actually think that's probably where you guys really have an unfair advantage instead of trying to build something that fights against the whole world, which still can exist, but it's a pretty difficult space right now in gaming.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. A lot of Indian developers today look at the tier 1 West market because monetization is easier. But definitely, you're competing with bigger, larger, more funded developers there. How does Makers look at this particular? Are you more excited about people building for India from India or from India for the outside world?
I think both sides are still definitely interesting. I think one good example that I could give, from another country, is probably Turkey. Like a few months back, couple of years back, or even further, nobody would imagine Turkey to be a huge gaming hub, at least for mobile puzzle games in the world, right? Until Peak sold to Zynga, and then from that cohort came off this huge wave of high quality founders who have really deep understanding of specific genre, just puzzle, right? They don't need to be great at a wide variety of genre, but if they know one thing and they know it really well, up to the minute details of what we usually look for is also layer 2, layer 3 understanding of the genre market, right? When we ask you, why do you make this particular genre for that target market? The best developers, in our generation typically are able to give you, very detailed description of player experience, player motivation, what is the emotion that you get from probably every minute, from beginning to end of each session. So usually, I think that's usually a good example to give where, came from almost nothing, build out great homegrown companies and then come up with a huge wave of, great founders. So I think for India, that's definitely also possible. I think there are many people in the audience also focus on making great games for the Western audience. Probably the most common description I hear is, okay, we want to target middle-aged Western women, a female audience, right? More on either on casual or the mid-core side. So making sure that you have more deeper layer understanding of your target market than your peers, and also bring that into the moment-to-moment gameplay design, right? The sound effect, the animation, each time when you clear a match, what is the type of, enjoyment that could bring to your audience? I think that's really important. So once you get all of that nailed down, you're still able to compete in the most crowded genre of all, right? Which we're still seeing, new games coming out in the past couple of months as well, still able to compete in the puzzle genre.
Yeah, absolutely. Just sort of switching gears a little bit and focusing a little bit more on the challenges that we might see founders or developers facing. I'll mix it up a little bit. I'll maybe get Yasa to opine on it. UA has been a big challenge in the last couple years. Phylicia alluded to that as well. Today, most of the people are trying to figure out in this new environment with privacy law coming in, how do you navigate UA? What are the suggestions that you are giving your portfolio companies today?
Sorry, question was how India compared to global, you mean?
So just how are they navigating privacy laws and the new UA challenges that we are seeing? What's your advice to companies, developers out there?
Okay, so advice for that to give, yeah. So I think particularly game industry in India. So I believe execution is more important in India game markets. So already, last 10 years, 20 years, a lot of games being developed in Western country, also Asia country. So, in terms of the game genre-wise, the action game or mobile or RPG, there's already many games established. So, game mechanics, game genre-wise, I think, India game developer, don't have to redevelop, reinvent it again. But execution, live ops, culture was more important. So for very, super short example, so we US people or we Japanese people celebrate the Halloween end of October. But I realized Indian people didn't, I think maybe some of them, but the biggest one is the Diwali, right? In the end of the October. So US people, Japan people, basically, taking the care seriously Halloween, but India people, celebrate the Diwali instead of that. So I think that's a, huge difference, also huge chance here. So I mean, India game developers, so there's many game mechanics already exist in Western and Asia. And looking at the game mechanics, game genre from Western and Asia, bring it to the India, but culturalization. So do not follow the Halloween, of course. They have to culturalization into the Indian culture. The live ops is matter, right? So live ops wise is depending on the seasonal, also depending on the event in India base. So culturalize and localize in Indian culture very well. I think that's the key success of the Indian game development. So very super simply, importing the League of Legends or mobile or Apex Legends, whatever, and how make it to these games as a really Indian native games.
Yeah. Deepen, if I can get your views, are there any new techniques for UA or any sort of strategies that you are brainstorming with your portfolio companies to navigate the challenges they might be seeing in the last 1 year?
Yeah, I think there are a few. I think the micro-influencer side has presented huge opportunities. Here in India, I think folks like Winzo have done a really phenomenal job around that. You look at the idea of the gamification of a lot of different areas, right? So a lot of what we all talk about generally is hardcore gaming companies, right? Whether that, even if it's casual, hyper-casual, mid-core, hardcore. But we forget that education or financial services, these are prime areas for the growth of gaming. So you think about the gamification of, which presents a tremendous opportunity where acquisition is very, very different. I think the idea of building new distribution or trying to build distribution at scale in India is incredibly challenging right now, right? As Phylicia mentioned, acquisition costs are really, really high right now. So trying to think about it in a different lens of how you build a user base is really important. I think being a mobile gaming company in India and just trying to acquire users, one, it's hard to see you being able to acquire quality users or really strong cohorts without spending a significant amount of money. So in India, the thing is you can go acquire a ton of users. Will those users actually stick around, if you look at majority of companies that we look at here in India, you look at the, D1 versus D7 versus D30. It is very, very stark difference to what we see in a lot of other markets. But people are touting the big headline numbers, which is we have 5 million users, 10 million users. There needs to be a bigger emphasis on quality of users. And so as you think about the quality of users, we've been spending a lot more time thinking about, gaming around different industries. So we made an investment into the gamification layer around savings and investing. We forget one of the, in my mind, one of the most successful gaming companies is Duolingo. You think about the gamification of education. We're not education investors, but we're constantly, as you think about India, this is an entertainment-driven ecosystem. When you're an entertainment-driven ecosystem, gaming has much more applicability as you think about it beyond the traditional realm of gaming. And so I think that presents a unique opportunity around customer acquisition and acquiring user base that perhaps other people aren't thinking about as much or perhaps are not as picked over.
Now, coming to Haru, Haru, I know with your time at Riot and both at MIXI, you've seen some of the best practices being implemented while building and distributing games. As India moves to the next level and we start seeing better quality games, what would your advice to developers be? What are the areas that they can double click on to really build or bridge the gap between world-class games and what you're seeing come out of the country today?
Okay. Well, to the founders, that as Deepen mentioned, that when we look into the entertainment sector or gaming sector, there are lots of opportunities beyond the gaming. So if you could find a viable, workable business thesis that combines, gaming essence, that's great. So rather than, sticking into the traditional game development, beyond the gaming realm is one thesis that we are also after. Then when we talk about the gaming development, that one example is that MIXI invested in the right-free games. If you've seen the news, that they're building the AAA game quality games out of India. So you have to be, it's either build a quality game out of India or you take a different approach, like you minimize the cost and develop some games. But if you, I think you have to be smart in identifying what business model works when you make a pitch to the investors, because just straightforward building the game in one sector is increasingly challenging. So you have to be aware of that.
And I would love to ask the challenges and how they look at investment to all the 5 panelists, but in the interest of time, I'll break it a little bit. So if Andrea and Phylicia, one by one, you guys could quickly opine on what do you look for when you're making a gaming investment? What would your criteria be? That would be really helpful as people approach you.
Can I just cheekily go back to the UA question a little bit?
Yes, please. Please, if the organizers allow me.
Okay. Well, I'll make it quick. I think, just to touch on what Deepen said, I think there are things as developers and publishers you can do to make your life easier, and one is pick areas where it's going to be easier for you to acquire users because it's a little bit less of a bloodbath. But I think the other thing is also always keep experimenting with new channels, and I think the privacy landscape is going to be what it is. We don't have really any control on it. We just have to play the game that we're, with the cards that we're dealt. But I think there's a lot of things that we're looking at when it comes to UA. We're not just talking about the cost per installs, right? We're talking essentially about LTV CAC, return on ad spend, and that actually matters when it comes to whether or not a game can scale and how that impacts your cash flow as a business. And at the end of the day, it's also about getting qualified users. So there are people building in the broader gaming ecosystem and consumer ecosystem channels that I think are probably better than the other performance marketing channels. They're complementary. So we've invested in a company, for example, called Benjamin that does these kind of cashback money moments. But what that allows them to do is build first-party data on actual gamer spend. So that I can tell exactly that you are targeting somebody who will end up paying. that's probably better than you running some other UA campaign and then fingers crossed, maybe it's qualified, maybe it's not qualified. Or something like we invested into KGen, which does more gamified UA for Web 2, Web 3 publishing. So like I think just keep testing those channels and trying new things, and paying attention to the unit economics of what you're publishing and what you're trying to develop.
Yeah, you can, Andrea, if you can sort of talk about, how you guys look at investments and what are the criteria that you follow while deciding whether to move ahead.
Sure. Okay. Understand. Probably time's up. So quick summary. So what we look at, I probably want to mention before is, good founders have very deep insight and understanding of the genre that you're working on and also your target market. So, when we ask you, why do you make this particular genre? Why for that, audience? We would love to hear, very well thought out answers versus, your standard, genre A and genre B both work very well. Why don't we merge them together, right? We'd love to hear a lot more deeper than that. So I think in general, we wouldn't say, typically saying what genre you look for doesn't really age that well. So I would say that I think that philosophy typically applies to, in general, all the studios that we look at. When I mentioned we look at late C to Series A, Series B. So if you're within that maturity, you want to raise for your game. I think ideally for us is if you have like a playable build for us to be able to test out. No matter, I think for us, no matter how well you, how great the pitch is, another beats like actually trying out on your own, right? To show what it's your thinking through like the first hour, 2 hours of gameplay. So yeah, feel free to reach out to us if you are interested to raise funding.
Yeah. Well, this has been a very insightful panel, but I would just like everybody to make final closing statement around how they're looking to deploy in India over the next 1 year. And if any of our audience members or founders want to reach out to you, how can they grab your attention?
I go. Well, we'll continue to. So far, we made 4 investments into India, and 3 more are coming up in the DD stage. So likely that we make 7 investments. So we continue to make investment focused in India next year. So we have a website on the MIXI Global Investment, and I have a LinkedIn. So I regularly post the updates about the fund. So if you can contact me via LinkedIn or website and see the updates on what our fund is doing in India.
Yes, we plan on continuing to be extremely active in the India market. We plan to deploy certainly into several more companies over the next 12 to 18 months, primarily seed stage, although in some cases we've gone as early as pre-seed, as late as Series A. Average check size for us will likely be in the range of 2 to 3 million is what we're potentially targeting at this stage. How to get in contact with us. I recently relocated to Dubai, so I'm in India every single month going forward, between Bangalore, Hyderabad, Mumbai, and Delhi. You can email us, hello@courtsidevc.com. We review every single deal that comes in through there. In fact, as I mentioned earlier, Winzo was a cold email that came into us that we ended up funding. Or you can email me at deepen@courtsidevc.com or connect with me on LinkedIn or Twitter.
Yeah, and GFR Fund, though, we are also very actively exploring the Indian market. So we probably do 3-4 more deals the next 12 months. And our focus is, still gaming, 50%, but we also do the non-gaming for consumer entertainment, consumer stuff too. E-commerce, digital media, social media, D2C, whatever. We also do the non-gaming too. Primary pre-seed seed Series A, putting to the 50K to the 1.5 million, very wide range of the check size. So to reach out to us, please visit to the gfrfund.com. So we have the inquiry form on the website, or yas@gfrfund.com. That's my email. So please shoot me email, or just if you're interested in still me. So I have a couple of the business cards on my end. So I can give you the business card. Yeah, looking forward to hearing from you. Yeah.
Yeah, I think to the answer, are we still investing in India? Yes. In fact, we are doing a deal right now. So we'll be able to share more details on that in the months to come. Definitely looking to do more deals in India. Like I said, if you're building in India for the world, we want to talk to you. If you're building in India for India, we also want to talk to you. You can reach us. There's an application form on the website, playventures.vc. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter with the very inventive handle PPPHYL. And yeah, like come up and just say hi. If, you know, for some reason my inbox is a mess and I don't get back to you, please just follow up.
I think for us as well, we're very active in looking at Indian gaming companies. I think we're a global VC fund, so we don't really have specific set allocations for which, you know, we look at all opportunities equally. But aside from gaming, you know, probably the remaining 30 to 40%, we also look at social platforms as well, or consumer facing. So if you're also building something to do with that, you know, feel free to reach out to us. So you can also find out more about makers at makersfund.com. But otherwise, you know, shoot me a message on LinkedIn. But if my LinkedIn inbox is kind of full, and if I don't respond to you very quickly, apologies in advance. It's probably because I need to check it a little bit more often. But you can also find me at Andrea at makersfund.com.
Thank you, everyone, for coming down to India and sharing your insights. You know, this is a testimony to where the Indian markets are. We at Eximius believe that inflection point where it comes to gaming and just generally social platforms. So I hope that this encourages you to build better and more platforms coming out of India. Thank you again.
Thank you, panelists. Next, we have a talk on investment into India. What makes us, shaping the future, insights and vision for the gaming industry. Shri Sanjay Jaju, Secretary. The talk is going to be presented by Shri Sanjay Jaju, Secretary, Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. He was an Indian Administrative Services Officer of batch 1992, currently serving as the Secretary of the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, Government of India. Previously worked as Additional Secretary in the Department of Defense Production in the Ministry of Defense, where he has worked in bringing in investments and growth in the defense and aerospace sector.
Am I audible? Can you just put this on? I can't hear. इसका volume बढ़ा दो थोड़ा. Yeah, I can now hear. Yeah, good. Great. So, good afternoon, friends. Very tough to hold attention of anybody post-lunch. But that's how my schedules are today. So my apologies for not making it in the morning half. I'll not take too much time. I've already had discussions with all the top game developers in a small roundtable that was being held, and I've only come here to kind of tell you that Government of India, as in the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, we all consider game development as a very important economic activity, the activity which has huge employment potential, and in the global media and entertainment pie, gaming and the entire business of game development is now the fastest growing piece. And it's in this context that from Government of India we look at this segment as a very important sunrise sector, and there are initiatives which are now being planned. I have indicated upwards that in the roundtable that now we have coming up with the Indian Institute of Creative Technologies. The Union Cabinet has given a green light to a proposal to create Indian Institute of Creative Technologies, which is going to be acting as a national center of excellence for not just bringing in industry skills to all those who are interested in taking up the animation, visual effects, gaming, comics, extended reality segment jobs. But at the same time, it will also provide them incubation support in case they intend to go up the ladder and become an enterprise themselves. Friends, all of you would agree that for us in our country, games have always been a defining feature of our culture and life. I mean, I still remember my my days as a kid, and all of us were busy playing chess, all of us were busy playing Ludo, all of us were playing some game which were like making it on the floor ourselves, and that gives us the feeling that many of these games actually have emerged from our country, and it's a fact that Chaturanga and Chopad, as we used to call it, actually emerged from our country. So I think we have a rich tradition of developing games even before the IT age arrived in, and I think it's this culture, it's this mindset which can possibly now take us to the next stage and allow us to become world leaders in game development. We already have a huge demographic dividend. We have a young population that's growing that has growing interest in gaming, and so a huge market. And I think it's important that we create opportunities for this segment to grow, and from Government of India, we are fully committed to provide all such opportunities. So as I speak to you, I also want to kind of tell you that after my presentation, there will also be a presentation by our team on the World Audio, Visual and Entertainment Summit. We're calling it WAVES. WAVES 2025 is going to be a convergence event across all the verticals of media and entertainment business, which includes the gaming segment, the AVGC segment, and of course the other pillars of media and entertainment, as you all understand. And another reason why we look at game development as a very important pillar for India is from the perspective of the soft power. The games that are going to be inspired by Indian culture and the games that then go out into the world and are played by billions of people outside our country also emphasizes upon the soft presence of our country, the rich cultural heritage that we have, and that's how that resonance comes in from many of those games to the cultural ethos of our country. And in this context, when I was going around the exhibition, I realized that a lot of efforts are going on in terms of developing intellectual properties, which is very critical. I used to be here, working here in the state 10 years back in Hyderabad. In the IT space, I used to be the secretary here. And I used to always emphasize upon the fact that, look, we have become the IT powerhouse, but that is only in services. We need to become significant player in the world in creating IPs, our products. And I think that's what is going to bring us the bigger bucks. And that's where this particular segment has all the shapings of becoming a very important segment. When I look at all these young people coming in from smaller towns, creating games and, making their products go worldwide. So friends, as all of you would agree, you would always require complete backup and support from the government when it comes to, running your own businesses. I also wanted to emphasize upon the point that a lot of people had these notions and trying to create this equivalence of what you are doing with what is being illegally done as, say, gambling or something like that. And I think all those notions have actually been dispelled. Our Honorable Prime Minister had a personal interaction with gamers in the month of April. Then, in his Independence Day speech, he, from the ramparts of Red Fort, our Prime Minister made a clarion call that India should develop world-class animators and world-class gamers and world-class game developers, obviously. So, it's in this context that you all would be knowing that we have already launched something called as Create in India Challenge. And the season 1 of Create in India Challenge is currently going on. And this particular challenge has large number of gaming tracks as well. And all these tracks are going to encourage innovation, and I would like to exhort all those who are in this room and outside to make use of this opportunity. Create in India Challenge Series Season 1 is currently on. If you have not noticed it, please have a look at it. Apply for it, because more than 1 lakh people have already applied and registered for our challenges. And out of this, we have a huge cumbersome task, but a very happy task of selecting few who will ultimately be part of the grand finale that will be happening in waves in February 2025. So it's indeed a momentous occasion that I could come and see all of you, meet all of you, look at the good work that you all have been doing, and you can take it for granted that from our side in Government of India will provide you complete wholesome support and will ensure that this sector does not just remain a sunrise sector, but it becomes a booming sector, a vibrant sector, a sector that not just drives your own professions, but at the same time it allows you to become job creators, become enterprises, become global enterprises, and I'm sure all of you have hooked on to this vertical with that kind of a spirit only. So once again, my congratulations and thanks to the organizers for giving me this opportunity. I would request my colleagues to make a presentation on waves and tell you what all it has for all those who would like to join in. Thank you very much.
I would like to thank Sanjay sir for taking time out, and for us, it's a really great opportunity for all of us from a gaming community to put forth our thoughts about what is happening in our industry, what our problems are, and he has been kind enough to spend the whole day here, which is a fantastic thing. That's something which has not happened before, and I would like to really thank him for taking the time out and hearing us and promising us that whatever our concerns are and what we want, what we have talked about, it has got a really patient hearing. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for being here.
Good afternoon, friends. We'll have a small presentation about waves and the opportunities that exist with waves. Next slide, please. Okay, so we look at the media entertainment sector across the world, and it encompasses everything from films to broadcasting to gaming to AVGC, etc. And it is somewhere close to 2.32 trillion. India stands somewhere close to about 2.5 lakh crores out of this, which is still a very small fraction given the size of the Indian market, given the size of the nature of content that we are developing, the nature of innovations that are happening in India. We look at, if we see how the world is looking at India, these are very recent statements. And looking at from AI perspective, whether it is immersive entertainment, whether it is interactive entertainment, whether it is development of films, development of the animation sector, VFX sector, we see that the world is looking towards India. The world is looking towards Indian creators. The world is also looking towards Indian innovators. So some of the examples are there in front of all of you. I would emphasize on one of this, that is Warner Brothers Discovery recently established its Global Capability Center in India. So that is a huge achievement It is established in 3 cities. It is across Mumbai, Bangalore, and Hyderabad. Similarly, more and more companies are coming to India. More and more companies are giving jobs to Indians. Media, specifically in the media entertainment sector, there is a huge opportunity that lies that Waves is going to be a platform to be exploited further. If we look at the digital age, India has almost leapfrogged various technologies to directly go digital. We are ranked 1 in the ICT services exports. We are ranked 7 in the intangible asset intensity. We are ranked 6 in the venture capital received. We are ranked 8 in the number of unicorn companies. So the moment is ripe for the Indian media entertainment sector as well to utilize this opportunity and to grow further and to make a global footprint from India. If you look at some of the examples, this is more from the film's perspective, but some of the biggest global blockbusters, a lot of back-end work, a lot of shots have been produced by companies based out of India. So apart from the companies and apart from the investments, if you look at the Indian content is making waves across the world. Indian content ranging from games, ranging from social media creators, ranging from independent game developers, ranging from Indian individual artists, musicians, singers, they are getting popular across the world. So why waves? So that is a very important question that comes to the mind. There are lots of media entertainment events that happen across the world. Some of them are here in front of your screen. We are also at a prominent media industry event here at the IGDC. So most of the events focus either on a particular segment of the ecosystem or a particular sub-segment, or maybe they are content markets, or maybe they are only focused on award shows and film festivals, etc. Waves is going to be the world's first convergence event for the entire media entertainment sector. So what Waves is going to do is it is going to bring the entire, ranging from broadcasting, films, AVGC, digital media, streaming services, back-end production, distribution, everything under one umbrella. Second and most important component that I would want to emphasize here is that Waves is going to bring the global eyeballs to India. So there will be global companies that are going to participate at Waves, and I'll detail the more components about it and how the gaming ecosystem can benefit from it in further slides. So as you can see, I just mentioned about that it covers the entire M&D sector. So Waves, if we look at it as a government event, so it will be injustice to the entire property, entire summit that is attempted to be created. Waves, the government is providing a platform. We have to look at it as a platform, as a service, where the government will be providing the infrastructure, the required bandwidth, the required services that are required to bring the sector together, to bring global companies to India, to showcase Indian companies across the world. It is being run through multiple associations. These multiple associations are doing challenges. They are running their own conference tracks. There are other activities that I'll just detail in the further slide. So it's a 5-day event happening at the Bharat Mandapam, in the newly constructed Bharat Mandapam, where the G20 summit happened. The first 3 days are going to be business days, but there is a plan within the ministry that these days might also be open to the public. So one of the prime elements of Waves is a tentative CEO's roundtable to be held by the Honorable Prime Minister. Here you will have people coming, global thought leaders, global CEOs, big companies from India interacting directly with the policymakers at the helm. So there will be a clear vision statement, there will be a clear outcome that comes out of interactions, so that more and more global companies come to India, they give work to Indian companies, more Indian companies get investment out of global companies, etc. Then there's going to be a global media dialogue, which is, if you look at it, the G2G interactions between the ministers. However, what can also be thought of is if there are ministers from various countries coming to Delhi, and there are Indian companies, there are companies who would want to interact in side events. So those kinds of meetings can also be thought of, they can be developed. One of the more important parts is the knowledge track of the entire Waves event, which is the thought leaders track, which involves plenary sessions by prominent persons, as well as the breakout sessions focusing on specific topics. So we can think of specific sessions related to gaming, specific sessions related to game development, maybe the gaming ecosystem. We keep on hearing about the issues of skills and so on. So all that can be brought together under one umbrella so that the policymakers are there, the industry is there, and problems can be addressed. Coming to another important element, which is the creatosphere. So the creatosphere is for the creators economy. There is a misconception that goes on across the country, maybe also in some foreign jurisdiction, that creators are mostly on social media. That is completely incorrect, and the ministry does not believe in that philosophy. The creators are not only on social media, but independent game developers, independent artists, independent musicians. So there's going to be a creators conclave. Creators would have the opportunity to interact with companies, to maybe to distribute their IPs, to onboard their IPs on larger platforms, to have a global distribution. Also, there are 25 Create in India challenges that Secretary Sir already mentioned. So I'll not repeat on that, but there are a significant number of challenges, 4 to 5 challenges, which are particularly related to gaming, and I would encourage all of you, all of the gaming enthusiasts, game developers, gaming companies here to participate and contribute towards the Create in India challenges. So it involves cash rewards, it involves mentorship, training, industry exposure, international collaborations. As I just mentioned, 27 competitions have already been rolled out. Coming to another element of Waves, that is the Waves Bazaar. So the Waves Bazaar is going to be like a content marketplace. On the one hand, there are distributors, there are content acquirers, and on the other hand, there are IP holders. So if you have a gaming IP and you want to distribute it across the world, you want to distribute it through a larger platform, you want to distribute it through a major company. So there will be B2B opportunities, there will be opportunities for interaction, distribution, agreements, all through the Waves Bazaar. This is a purely B2B arrangement. And within this, the government will act only as the facilitator. There will be an online space where the companies would be registered and the meetings can be requested among the companies and take things forward. Coming to the exhibition space, now we look at this in a, this is a very, if I say it in a simple terms, this is very close to the Indian side and the Indian M&E sector, because we want to showcase the best of the Indian industry at Waves. So exhibitions, whatever technological developments are happening across the sector, whatever small companies are doing across the sector. So in gaming, we see developers coming out with games which are making hundreds of crores of rupees. So those kinds of technologies as to what goes behind making a game, how it is changing with the changing tech landscape, with the blockchain, with the AI, that all can be showcased at the exhibitions. There's going to be a gaming arcade. I'll emphasize on that part. Within the exhibition part, there's going to be a gaming arcade that is going to be built. So we request the support of all the gaming companies of India to actually come together, maybe through IGDC or directly, so that we showcase to the world as to what the gaming ecosystem of India is and where it stands. Wave Accelerator. This is again an important element of Waves, where the idea is matchmaking between investors and startups. So this is going to be thrown out, and after shortlisting of startups, getting their ideas, there are going to be live pitching sessions. But don't worry, it is not going to be a Shark Tank or that kind of a format. It is not a show, it is a purely B2B arrangement, where there are opportunities for investment. There are also, I would emphasize, there are opportunities for mentorship. There might be leaders in the various companies who want to mentor startups, who want to help startups, help them grow as a personal initiative. There is also an opportunity through incubation and acceleration programs within the government, not only the existing accelerators which are already up and running, but also in future through the IICT, the Indian Institute of Creative Technologies that Sir just mentioned. Then, obviously, after doing a lot of business, everyone needs some relaxation, and I believe everyone knows what this is about. So, cultural evenings, there's going to be opportunities for Indian music, international music, artists coming across the globe, fusion, cultural events during the evenings. So, this is more or less the long and short of it, and we would love enthusiasm and enthusiastic participation as well as partnership, either through the platform of the IGDC or through companies coming here. We would also encourage global companies which have presence in India to bring in their CEOs, their global CEOs to India, so that they can actually experience what the Indian M&D sector, especially the gaming sector, is all about, and remove whatever misconceptions or preconceived notions are there. For any further communications, my number is available with the organizers of IGDC, that can be very easily taken, and the email of CEO Waves that we will also share. So thank you very much. Thank you for patiently listening. If there are any questions, I would be happy to answer. Thank you.
DJ audio.